Welcome to the Athletic Foundations Workshop Series. I'm here with Roger Kitchen Jr. He's a mental skills coach for high performance athletes. He runs Power Mental Performance, and today he's going to teach us about the zone, what the zone is, how to move into the zone, and all of that in between. Roger, take it away.
All right, let's do this. Let me share my screen and I'm going to walk you guys through a presentation I put together. This is something I use with a lot of teams. Coaches even use it in workshops. So, DJ, can you see it?
I got it. Yep.
All right, we're cooking with gas. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and talk a little bit about okay, why, how, and what I do. So, again, Roger Kitchen, Power Mental Performance. I'm the founder and mental skills coach for PMP. And really, how I fell into this, it was back in February 2017. I was training high performing teams at NASA, and our company hired a sports psychologist. Guy came to work with us to help train high performing teams because high performing teams, we learn so much from elite teams, regardless of the sport. Win a World Cup, win a Super Bowl, win a World Series. A lot of business leaders want to know the secret sauce to those coaches and their methodology. So we bring in a sports psychologist. Conversely, my athletic background's in powerlifting. So I did it in college, but I took a 24-year break. So when I started to get back into it as a master, as an old guy, this gentleman, Dr. Matt Park, who's a good friend of mine, kind of worked with me on the mental preparation because it was a 24-year layoff and I'm getting back into the sport. And him working with me prepped me for that meet that I got into. And I was like, man, boom, like every athlete needs this. I was like, every athlete needs this because I saw the benefit. I also saw my shortcomings. And I was like, man, the mental toughness, the resilience, you got to think different to perform different. You've got to have a different perception to perform differently. And so how we handle stress, manage anxiety, how we prepare for games, what are those things that we need to do in order to make ourselves the best version of ourselves in order to be that high performing athlete to achieve the goals that we want while we're dealing with pressure. And so that's kind of how Power Mental Performance started. I was my first client, DJ. And so, I can attest that the stuff that I teach athletes and coaches and teams, I use on myself, and it's been successful. And so he and I just started reaching out to a lot of high schools. We would just contact the ADs, cold call, and then one high school here in Madison, large high school, brought us on board back in 2017, and that's just how it all started. I first started working with swimming and diving teams, go figure. But every sport, every athlete I work with, the commonality is they're dealing with pressure. And so how do you manage that? And so that just morphed over time, started working with more high schools, started working with colleges. And it was in the process of all of that I started reflecting on my own life back when I was that age in high school and college. And it went from, man, this was great for me to help me get back into powerlifting. And then I went, this is why I do it. I'm looking for people who were like me in high school and college. And here's what I mean by that. If somebody would have said, describe Roger Kitchen as an athlete in high school and college, they would have said, he has a lot of potential. If, and that's a big word, if he would work harder, if he was more disciplined, if he would quit partying, if he wasn't just so distracted, and, if he just was more mentally tough. And so I missed out on a lot of athletic opportunity because of the word if. Now, conversely, if somebody says DJ's got potential because he works hard, he's got his academics down, he's got character, he has integrity, you're doing all the right things. That's a different conversation. But I was the potential if kind of guy. So here's what happens as I started working with teams and colleges. I'm looking for the Roger Kitchens because one, if by some sheer miracle they made a team just off of talent and nothing else, I need to talk to that person and I need to kind of get in their grill a little bit. And hopefully there's something I say that kind of changes their life, gets them to think differently, in order to perform differently so that they can up their game. Because look, if anybody follows Eric Thomas, ET, the hip hop preacher, he says it all the time. Average is easy. Average is really easy. I was average in high school. I graduated with a C grade. So I got a high school diploma being average. I went on to college. I graduated with a 2.47. That is average. So like you can do things in life and be average, but are you really making a difference? Are you achieving your goals? Are you going for something big? And so, my why is I wake up and I go work with these athletes and these teams and these coaches, and I'm looking for the Roger Kitchens of the world because I'm trying to get them to really do things differently, think differently, handle pressure differently so that they can perform differently, achieve their goals. So I want all of my athletes to really just be mentally and emotionally well. And so I do that through tips and techniques, training, workshops. I'll go sit and, be a part of the staff, for a particular team. And I'll go in and work with teams just like a regular coach. So, what do? I'm a mental skills coach. And I'm trying to make a difference in somebody's life so that they can achieve everything that they want to achieve. So that's a little bit about me, what I do and how I do it. And, some of the pictures on the screen, I've worked with some basketball teams. There's a girls volleyball team at the bottom, cross country track football, basketball, powerlifters, working with powerlifters too. So that's a little bit. And here's what I'm trying to get out of the athletes and teams. So first, I'm trying to help them increase their self-confidence because that can always be a challenge. Have a good game, my confidence is high. Have a bad game, my confidence is low. Getting athletes out of that trap. Improving their focus so that they can minimize the distractions. Learning how to achieve their goals, perform under pressure. And then another one I like to do is build in a positive team culture, teaching teams how to do that, because when things are good in the locker room, they're good on the field. It's kind of like in life, when things are good at home, things are good at work. And so helping teams build that positive team culture. So, a bunch of different sports, work with UAH Division I hockey. So I've worked with hockey teams, currently working with Huntington basketball down in Montgomery, amongst some other college basketball teams. This is a picture DJ and I worked with Bob Jones High School. So that's a shot of the team after one of my sessions. But then people that live in the state may know this guy, Jameis Winston. He has his Dream Forever camps that he runs. He comes for a week, all expenses paid, about 100 high school athletes. And he and his entourage and his family, and they just invest in these kids in the community to develop them as people and develop them as players. And then this was 2 years ago before COVID hit. I was the mental skills coach for his camp. And then OJ Howard had similar camp that summer too. So I was the mental skills coach for his camp, and they're going to do them again, but just waiting to see what happens with COVID. So just, different groups of people. God's been very good to me in terms of who I can work with and what I can do. So it's, the why, how, and what I do and the results I'm trying to get out of the athletes and teams. So today we're going to talk about, this is kind of a mental skills 101 today. So what is mental skills? What are some things that I teach athletes? And what can we learn from it? So we're going to talk about the zone. And that's what everybody wants, right? The zone, the zone, the zone. When like somebody's in the zone, like they're playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing with a lot of passion. Things are effortless. They can just go, and they drown out the noise, and they're just in this unique place. So we're going to talk about what that is and isn't, and how athletes can move towards that. I've got something called the MVP process for mental development and mental performance, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Really, one important aspect of mental skills training is what we call the neutral zone. And then we're going to talk about how to practice proper breathing techniques to reduce tension, stress, or even anxiety. And so it's a little bit about what we're going to unpack over the next 60 minutes. So DJ, let me just throw it back to you. Kind of what were your expectations coming in? We've talked a lot, we've worked together a lot, but what were you wanting the audience to get out of today's discussion? What would you like them to really maybe pick up on?
Well, I think you hit it in that an introduction to mental skills and with it being focused around the zone and performance and controllables versus things you can't control, and your MVP process, that neutral zone, I think that will be very beneficial to the audience because we will have coaches and athletes use this throughout their seasons.
Okay.
So I think the the tangible points that we're going to hit will allow them to come back and ground themselves as needed.
Okay. All right. So let's keep moving. I'll make sure I hit that stuff. So a lot of times I'll ask athletes and teams, I'm like, so what does mental skills mean to you? And it means different things to different people. And so sometimes people think maybe I'm a monk, a Zen Buddhist, and I'm always in this state of stillness or quietness. And there's some truth to that. Or maybe they think mental skills is like being a special operator, like a Navy SEAL, because of the focus and the intensity and the toughness. And there is some truth to that. The guy on the right is a guy named Roger Bannister, who broke the mile record, ran it in under 4 minutes. And up until that time that he did it, nobody said you could run a sub 4 minute mile. It was never done. And he was the first person that broke the mile. And interesting enough, 6 months after doing it, 2 more people did it. And so, once somebody accomplishes something significant that was impossible, it shifts our mentality now. And then, multiple people over the decades, I think he broke this in like 1928 or 1932. I mean, it was a long time ago, but since then, lots of people have broken that, sub 4 minute mile in running. But you've got to be mentally tough to do that. I mean, anybody that wakes up and says, I'm going to go sprint a mile, you're crazy. So, runners are just wired a little bit differently. I have found as I work with them, especially the long distance ones, they're just unique animals. So, mental tools, for today, the zone, control what we can control. We'll talk about what you can't control. Talk about what is the difference between a process mindset and a results mindset. And so we're going to unpack that. Again, talk about mindfulness, visualization, and positive self-talk. That's that MVP model. And I'll talk about how I became introduced to that as we go along. And then the neutral zone. Why do we want to remain neutral from an emotional and even thinking perspective? What's the benefit and what's the rationale behind that? So, DJ, I got a challenge for you. So here's what I want you to do. Watch the video, follow the instructions on the video, and then we'll unpack what I'm trying to teach the audience.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count?
How many, DJ?
Ooh. Oh, I'm around that 12, 13, I believe.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
It actually is more like 17, but did you notice anything unique or different about that video?
I actually did.
What do you see?
I saw someone in a gorilla suit passing through. So maybe it's because I lost count.
So it's interesting. Some people miss the gorilla. And I lost my light, DJ. I'm gonna try to fix it real quick.
You're
For
good.
some reason, it just died on me. But some people, they actually miss the gorilla going through because they are so laser focused on the counting and everything going on around them, in that video. And the point I make is when you're like laser focused on something and like when you're really in the zone, like all those little distractions you don't notice. So the people that really are intentional about the counting, they don't even see the gorilla because they are trying to get it right. So it's just a little fun exercise to get people kind of, warmed up to focus and attention and being able to really be laser focused in on something, because that's a big part of the zone, is being able to have that focus and attention and let the distractible things go away. So as we move on, so we talk about the zone, right? So one aspect of the zone is the controllables. Things within my control. So, it's typical when I work with a team, I'll say, okay, what do you guys control, or ladies, what do you control in your sport? Let's just pick a sport. Let's just say baseball. What do you control? Well, I control kind of my process to get ready for a game. I control how I step into a batter's box. I can control how much effort and hustle I put forth on any given day. And so, there's a lot of things that really, when you list all the things that you control, it gets bucketized into 3 areas: attitude, effort, and focus. And so I can control my focus. I can control my attitude. How do I respond to adversity? How do I respond to things I can't control? What am I doing to positively create team culture? But then conversely, we go over to, okay, what are things outside of your control? So like 5 minutes ago, I lost my light. I can't control technology all the time, right? But you start asking them, and man, that list gets really long for an athlete. And they're like, the refs and the fans and the opposing players, my teammates, my coaches, my boyfriend or girlfriend, and man, you could just start seeing them get really emotional about things they can't control. And I'm like, so what do you want to think about? Would you rather think about things you can control or things you can control? I said, give me some emotions of things that, happen to you when you start thinking about things you control. I said, a ref blows a bad game, makes a bad call, regardless of the sport. Umpire, fill in the blank. What's the emotion you feel? Anger, stress, fear, anxiety, all those negative emotions come in. I said, when you're controlling what you can control, how does that make you feel? And they're like, calm, still, confident, because they're in control of something. And when we're in control of something, it just elicits a better emotion for us. And so I'm like, so where do you want to live? And they're like, I want to think about things I can control. I said, you're right. So the other part of the zone is what I call a process mindset. So before we started the call and everybody joined on, you and I were talking about pre like AM and PM routines, routines that athletes have for practice, routines they have to go through their day. What is their schedule? How do they structure things? If they have a goal, so pick a goal for like a baseball player. They want to have a certain batting average. Like, I want to hit 300 this season. Okay, then what do you have to do in order to hit 300? And so you'll hear guys say, well, just more batting practice. I said, that's good, but let's get super specific. What does that really mean? Well, I probably should come early to practice and stay late after practice and hit more baseballs. I said, you're right, but let's get more specific. Let's make it specific and let's make it measurable. And I mean, you get them down to 50 extra baseballs that I'm going to hit before practice, 50 after. I said, okay, are you going to do those off the tee? Are you going to do soft toss? Are you going to do from the batting cage? Are they going to be dry swings? Getting them down, like for a volleyball player, they have a certain percentage of serve, and getting the volleyball player to think in terms of, what do I got to do to be a better server, and digs and kills and all those stats that come along with a volleyball player. And then getting them to just focus on that, because what happens is when they get over to a results mindset and they live here, if they don't score 20 points or they don't have good serve percentage, they're a train wreck. And, they base their confidence on their performance, and they get so hyper fixated on results. Like, Am I going to be in all city selection? Am I going to be in all state selection? Am I going to get a scholarship? And like, those are good. You need goals. You have to have them. But then we want to work backwards, and we want them to just focus on the process. Just focus on what you need to do to get there. You know, Nick Saban popularized that with Alabama football. It's always about the process. We don't think wins and losses. We don't think yards, you know, per catch. We don't think free throw percentage. We don't think serve percentage. We don't think fill in the blank statistic. It can be as ethereal as even just like win a conference championship. We stay purposely away from that because we know that when we work our process, those mini goals that lead up to that result, winning will be a byproduct of that. Achieving that goal will be a byproduct of that. And so we want the athlete to just be focused on the process. So really kind of here's what it looks like. When we break it down, I want my athletes to live on the left side of this chart, this slide. When you are controlling what you can control and you have a process mindset, your routines, achieving a goal step by step, knowing what you need to do the here and now, and just focusing on that day in, day out, week in, week out, it's just easier to move into the zone. Even in a game where you're just focusing on one play at a time, one pitch at a time, one serve at a time. In ice hockey, they work in shifts, getting them just to have a good line and a good shift one at a time. Then you're not worried about a mistake you made in the past. You're not worried about if you're going to win. You're just keeping yourself present. And so that's the real magic. The elite performers are the ones that are process oriented, controlling what they can control, but they really are taking every play one at a time. So obviously on this chart, red is bad, and red takes you out of the zone. And so that's like danger, danger. We don't want to go there. I don't want to fixate on what I can't control. And I can't be hyper fixated on statistics, wins, losses, and just those results. It's going to mess up performance. So how do we get there? So how do I, what makes it easier for me to move into the zone? What habits can I do to help me kind of maintain that good emotional state? So we have the MVP process, and the first M is mindfulness. And this was really birthed out of a friend of mine. His name's Graham Betchart. He's the former mental skills coach for the Utah Jazz in the NBA. He worked with a gentleman by the name of George Mumford. Now, anybody that's a basketball guru, old school basketball knows that name because he worked with Phil Jackson at the Bulls and the Lakers when they ran on those championships. So George Mumford was Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's sports psychologist through those years. So he and Graham developed this model. And then as Graham and I became friends, he shared it with me. And I'm like, man, this is solid and it's a winner. So when we think mindfulness, there's a few aspects of this that's really important to highlight. One, the benefit of mindfulness is just being present in the moment and not distracted. So it's just learning how to minimize distraction. It's not saying, a lot of times people are like, I don't want to have any distraction. And that's not necessarily realistic. We are going to be distracted, but it's how quick I can come back off being distracted and get back to being focused. That's really important. So it's a skill that can be developed. So you can improve your focus. You recognize distraction, but it doesn't take you away from what you wanted to do. So being present in the moment, not distracted. And I'm gonna ask you a question on this one, DJ. So it's training the mind to be clear, calm, and kind. Now, kind is a really unique word. What do you think? Why would we say we want to be kind to ourselves as an athlete? Just kind of just spitball. Tell me what you think.
Well, I know from my athletic career, there are times where I was not so kind to myself.
Yeah.
Negative self-talk and just beating myself down, berating myself for a mistake or, not covering all of my, call it pre-snap analysis and missing something. And I beat myself up and missed the next play.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a certain percentage of all athletes that they just murder themselves. They make a mistake and it feels devastating. And they are just so hard on themselves and they beat themselves up constantly, and it's not healthy. And they introduce so much stress. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it's what we call nature nurture. Some of it's just kind of their personality type, a little bit more critical. You don't know what kind of family environment they grew up in or what kind of coaching environment they grew up in, where like if they made one mistake, it was, they just got roasted. So, but an interesting thing about that, when I talk to athletes, I say, the things you say to yourself, would you tell that to your best friend? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, why do you do it to yourself? And sometimes the light bulb goes off, but again, it's a skill. It's a skill. The myth is this: we think if I'm compassionate to myself, I won't be a high performer. As if I learn to be compassionate, then I let myself off the hook for mistakes I did make. And it's like, no, it's the complete opposite. I learn, I grow, I still improve as an athlete, but I learn not to kill myself and tear myself down in that process. And so that's the important part. And then we can do it through meditation. There's a lot of ways to get there. Meditation's one, really having some good, healthy breathing and relaxation techniques. And we'll talk about those in a minute. So what I like to always show people, this comes from Headspace. It's just a little, well, what is it? And so I'm gonna play the video, and you can just tell me what's maybe one or two things that stand out to you in the video as we go through it.
Training the mind is often quite different to how people imagine it to be. Maybe they have an idea it's about stopping thoughts or eliminating feelings, but the reality is a bit different. An easy way to think of it is to imagine yourself sitting on the side of a busy road, the passing cars representing the thoughts and the feelings. All you have to do is to sit there and watch the cars. Sounds easy, right? But what usually happens is that we feel a bit unsettled by the movement of the traffic. So we run out into the road and try and stop the cars, or maybe even chase after a few, forgetting that the idea was to just sit here. And of course, all of this running around only adds to the feeling of restlessness in the mind. So training the mind is about changing our relationship with the passing thoughts and feelings, learning how to view them with a little more perspective. And when we do this, we naturally find a place of calm. Will we sometimes forget the idea of the exercise and become distracted? Of course we will. But as soon as we remember, here we are, back on the side of the road again, just watching the traffic go by, perfectly at ease in both body and mind.
So, what kind of stands out there, DJ? What do you think people in the audience will pick up on?
Well, I like in the beginning, mindfulness, you're trying to sit there and be still and be calm. And then, boom, there goes a car. Boom, there goes a car. So you start acknowledging your thoughts. Okay? And then in the first one of the frames, takes off after the cars. And so he's just chasing the thoughts, and then it comes back to the rock, and it's okay. You acknowledge them, but then you kind of just let them go.
Yeah, and so for people that start practicing just the mindfulness and just the stillness, you'll sit there for about 60 seconds, and then you start thinking about your to-do list, and then you start thinking about what you got to do at work, and then you're like, oh, I think and it's like, and then instead of going, oh God, I'm not good at this, I'm not going to get it, you go, okay. And then you just learn to come back to that place. And it's just a skill of learning just to come back to that place that over time, we call it a mental skill for a reason, right? It's no different than learning a skill in business and sports. There's no magic fairy dust or no magic wand we throw on people. And all of a sudden they are just mentally tough and they are resilient. And they can sit in stillness for long. It's a skill to be developed. So I tell people, we got to have a mental gym. You being a strength and conditioning coach, if you want to get somebody stronger, they go grab a barbell. They got dumbbell. I mean, we got all this equipment and we work it every day. And mental skills is the same thing. We got to have our own mental gym. We got to show up and practice and go through some of these mental reps in order just to learn how to slow things down and come to that place of calm. And so the MVP process that I'll take us through today can be done 5 minutes a day. And so the next
Training the mind is often quite different.
Let's see, what is it? I got one more. Okay, so this video is about like kind of how to do it. So a lot of people are like, "That's great, I got it, I get it," but then kind of how do I go about doing it? And so this is just a cute little video on how to do it.
Some days meditation will feel easy. On others, it might feel difficult. The trick is to gently stay with it each time, no matter how it feels. Look for a place in your routine where this exercise can slot in easily. Research shows it's easier to create a new habit when we do it at about the same time each day. We recommend doing it first thing in the morning, but you might need to be flexible with that. Find somewhere you won't be disturbed. Don't worry too much about background noise. I'll explain how to deal with that, but it might be easier at first if you have some peace and quiet. Make sure you're sitting comfortably before you start. Unless you're used to sitting cross-legged on the floor, I'd recommend using a chair. Sit with your legs and arms uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, and hands resting in your lap or on your legs. Try to keep your back straight, but not too tense. If you need it, a small cushion or a rolled up towel under your backside will help keep your back straight. And that's it. You're now ready to get some headspace.
So just a real simple video how to go into it. I usually tell athletes, especially at the high school level, practice it when you go to bed because you're already in a comfortable position. You're already trying to go to sleep, but then just start using some of those basic skills and it actually help them fall asleep. And that's kind of the purpose. And then as they get a little bit more comfortable with it, they can do it at different parts of the day. So just a quick way to highlight kind of how to do it and how to get into it. So, typically when I get to this point, I'll take a group through, the mindfulness process, teach them how to sit, how to relax, how to breathe, have them close their eyes and just kind of sit in some stillness, maybe 15, 20 seconds. For some, that feels like an hour because we're so busy, right? But, take a group of people just through a quick mindfulness exercise and have them kind of practice it real time. So when we get into the V part of MVP, it's the visualization. You and I are very familiar with this. So visualization very much is about you seeing you doing what you want to do. You see you doing what you want to do. You can visualize a free throw. You can visualize a volleyball serve. You can visualize setting a volleyball. You can visualize game, whatever your sport is. There's lots of different ways to visualize. And here are some kind of tips and techniques on how to do that. So you try to use all of your senses. You try to make it real time. So, for a quarterback, that's probably one of the easier examples is if you know the playbook and you know the plays, then you can visualize, what your line is doing, what your receivers are doing, what your running back's going to do. If you've watched enough film, you know what the defense is going to do. So you can kind of sit there in your mind. I call it pretending, I call it daydreaming, whatever resonates with you, but you're just thinking through and you can actually see what everybody's going to do on the field. So you want to do it real time. It's controlled. So obviously you create your visualizations. You're in control of it. Basketball players at a free throw line. That's an easy one too. Visualizing going through what a free throw shot can look like. You can do it with your eyes open. You can do it with your eyes closed, but you're in control of the visualization. Make it vivid, high definition. Try to get as immersed as possible in that visualization and try to see as much detail as you can. Next tip is keep it positive. Very high level elite athletes will eventually get to a place where they visualize mistakes, errors. They've kind of visualized everything going bad, but then the purpose is they'll start visualizing how to get out of it. So they learn how to bounce back from adversity or a setback, or it could be a pick six for a quarterback. It could be a missed free throw that would have tied the game or maybe even won the game for a basketball player. Just kind of fill in the scenario. But initially for a new athlete, keep those visualizations positive. And you can do it from an internal, external perspective. And what I mean by that is if you ever play video games and you're like a first person shooter and you kind of just see your weapon and you're killing monsters, you know, that's more of an internal perspective because you're seeing things. External can be like you actually looking on, you know, almost like you're watching yourself on TV, ESPN top 10, and you're a highlight. So it's more of like watching yourself in a movie versus being immersed inside of that event itself. I tell you, one of the best ways I visualize is when I've gone and competed at these meets and I do video of myself, I'll go back and watch the video on all my good lifts because then I can see myself doing it right. It's positive. There's a lot of detail there. And I just kind of watch it over and over again, like a highlight reel. And that has really worked well for me to visualize. And then, you know, the big takeaway is making sure you see yourself doing it, excelling at that task in hand, because it does help prepare the mind and body. So the nerdy brain science behind all this is this. Science and research has shown that if I visualize something, the brain can't distinguish between me visualizing it and me doing it. So if I visualize it a lot, in addition to my practice, it will manifest itself. They've done research on basketball players and free throws. They've done a group that practiced free throws and visualized, and then they had a control group that just practiced free throws. And the group that did the free throws and visualized had higher performance, higher free throw percentage. So the more you visualize, the greater chance you put yourself for success. And so that's how visualization works. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes some experimentation of what works for you. Nobody does it great the first time, and that's the compassion that we bring into the process. And so what I like to do is just this little thing I call the lemon exercise. And so what I'll do is with the group that I'm training, I'll say, okay, I want you to, we'll do some breathing exercises and we'll get people just to kind of relax, close their eyes. And then I'll say, I want you to visualize your kitchen or just a kitchen you're familiar with. Maybe it was the kitchen you grew up with. Maybe it's the one at your house or apartment, wherever you live. Now what I want you to do is visualize a cutting board with a lemon and a knife. And then what I do is I have them visualize what that kitchen looks like. And I walk them through going over and picking up the lemon, taking the knife, cutting the lemon, and really getting them to spend as much time as they can visualizing that whole process, even to the point of like trying to smell it. And then I'll say, in your mind, bite that lemon and dig into it. And as they go through the visualization, it takes about 10 minutes because you really slow it down. And I'll say, okay, what was that like for you? And it's not uncommon for people to go, I kind of tasted it. Like I almost felt like I could kind of smell it because the visualization was so strong. And so you can actually look this up. You can type in the lemon exercise visualization in Google, and you can find how to do it. But it's just a really good way to introduce people to visualization, trying to take them through this little exercise. All right, so we move on to the last part of MVP, the positive self-talk. So probably one of the most important aspects in the MVP, they're all tied for first, but I think the one that people can resonate well with quickly and really make some serious improvement is positive self-talk. Depending on what research that you find, University of Minnesota did a study. They said a person on average can think 1,400 words a minute. That's crazy. There's research that the Army has done that said it's a little over 500. So it kind of depends on what research you look at. The bottom line on all of it is our mind is we're always talking to ourselves and our mind is always busy. And you know, what you say to yourself is the most important conversation you have in the day. And so the more positive we are, the better. So the king of positive self-talk, Muhammad Ali, the greatest trash talker of all time. The guy just was in love with himself, but it was intentional. He's like, I knew I was the greatest before I knew I was. And so he was his own hype man. And that's what we want for athletes, learning how to talk to yourself in a positive way and being your own hype man, being your own coach, but understanding. So some research that was done in Georgetown says that a negative thought has 4 to 7 times more impact on you than a positive thought. So we know that the negative thought is stronger than the positive thought. So that's why we're trying to minimize the negative thoughts. But when you verbalize it's a factor of 10. So that negative thought inside, when it comes out, is more powerful. So if it's 4 to 7 times stronger than a positive thought, when I verbalize it, now it has 40 to 70 times the impact. So, DJ, you and I talked, we did the bucket analogy, right? With the dirty water, and the bucket's you and the dirty water is my complaining or my negative talk. And like, if I went to throw that on you right now, you'd be like, don't put that on me. Why? Because nobody wants that. And that negative talk is just not good. It can ruin cultures on teams, and it can really make athletes just puts them in a bad place not to perform. So positive self-talk. The reason we want to talk to ourselves positively is because we say confidence is an action, not a feeling. And so if we always tied our confidence to our feelings, we'd be a roller coaster, right? I have a great game and I'm feeling good. I have a bad game, I'm down. I have a good series or a couple innings and I'm great. I mess up and make mistakes in a couple other innings and I'm bad. Confidence is always about how I talk to myself, how I coach myself internally, but it's always about me taking the right next step. It increases my confidence when I talk to myself in a positive way. So what I tell people is, even if you don't feel confident, you can act confident, as hard as that is. And sometimes the emotions are overwhelming and it's just really hard to get there. So it takes practice. But in talking with athletes that struggle with confidence, it's like, what's the thing you need to do right now? What's the right next step? And they'll tell me, I need to do fill in the blank. I'm like, just go do it. Even if you don't feel it, just go do it. Because then the feeling's going to come. The feelings always follow the action. But getting ourselves to a place where we will ourselves, we just force ourselves to do what's right in that moment, in that play, in that game, in that series. It just takes practice, and it's easier said than done. Positive self-talk helps us overcome mistakes quickly, helps us to recover quickly. We know that. If I can have a key phrase or a key word that helps me bounce back, we call them trigger words. It could be something as simple as next play. It could be something as simple as let's go. It could be something as simple as I'm okay. It's different for everybody. And we tell athletes, have those trigger words, have that in your pocket so that when something happens, you can pull it out. And it's that mental cue to go on to something different, to get to that right next action. So we also talk about something called a thought stop cue. So really, at times, we don't realize how much negativity is spinning inside of our head. And it always messes up your body language. It messes up kind of how you carry yourself. I mean, DJ, we've seen it. Athlete makes a mistake, and you can just read their body language. They're just tore up. And they're beating themselves up. You can just see it. And so a thought stop cue is something visual. So in this example, this was from Louis Oosthuizen, who's a PGA golfer. He's from South Africa. This was years ago when he won the PGA championship. He had a red dot on his glove. And what he would do is, through the course of a tournament, when he would just start to feel nervous or anxious, he would look at the red dot, and it was a cue to just kind of come back to center. He would breathe. It was a cue for him to just get his mind to stop thinking and just kind of slow down. And so he had that red dot, and just before every shot, he would look at that red dot. He would go through his pre-shot routine and hit the shot. And so actually, since you're a volleyball guy, this was with a volleyball team that I coached. And what they would do, DJ, is they would look at the red dot on their hand before they would serve, And it was a cue for them to take a long, slow, deep breath to relax and just focus on the ball, nothing else. And then they would go through their serve. So, these visual things that we can bring into our performance are very helpful. So, we know that we want to focus on things positive. We don't want to go to the negative, because what we focus on grows. The more I think positively, the better I put my place in a way to perform. If I'm focused on the negative all the time, I'm just defeating myself. And so this is kind of how it works. If I said, DJ, don't think about a blue elephant. Don't think about a blue elephant. Don't think about a blue elephant. You're going to sit there and go, I can't help but think about a blue elephant because I'm staring at a blue elephant, get it out of my head. But that's the kind of thing that what we focus on grows, and we just want to make sure that we stay to the positive. Are you going to have negative thoughts? Absolutely. You're human. Getting rid of the negative thoughts really isn't the goal per se. It's learning to minimize them. It's learning to manage them better, but it's learning to shift my focus to what's positive, and looking for the good things, and looking for something that's more positive, so that I'm just moving there and it puts me in a better place to perform. So this is just kind of what it looks like. The MVP process is the mindfulness, the visualization, the positive self-talk. These are just the things that are part of each step. So with mindfulness, it's about breathing, sensing things that are around you in the moment. With the visualization, it's about kind of making yourself a human highlight video in your mind. And you can focus on being successful and confident and being aggressive. And the positive self-talk is those strong motivational affirmations that affirm you and your image, and you develop that catchphrase, those trigger words for success, and even help you overcome, mistakes. This takes 5 minutes a day, because all of us can sit for a few minutes and just practice our breathing, just the long, slow, deep breaths in through our nose and out through our mouth. We can kind of, let those thoughts that distract us kind of come and go. We can visualize something that we want to do and do it well. And then at the end of that, we can just say, whatever your phrase is, let's go. I'm good. Today's going to be a great day. My wife and I have this ongoing joke right now. If somebody didn't have a good night's sleep, or, raising kids can be tough. Look, I've got 2 dogs and a cat, and they're like it's amazing how they can go rogue on you too. And so, just life can throw stuff at you, and she and I will wake up and she's like, it's not going to be a good day. I got no sleep last night. And I'm like, babe, just say it's going to be a great day. I can't do it. I'm like, honey, come on. It's going to be a great day. And she'll go, it's going to be a great day. I'm like, just say you're okay. I'm okay. It's that kind of thing. We have fun with it, but the more you let it come out of your mouth, the worse the environment's going to be. So sometimes athletes will be like, so you don't want me to say anything at all? I'm like, no. If it's negative, keep it in, because I know when it comes out of your mouth, it's going to have a stronger hold, and it just takes you out of that realm of trying to perform where you want to be. And so MVP process, 5 minutes a day, start practicing it. It's really easy. So as we're getting kind of the end here, the one thing I do want to share with those that watch this video, this class, is this idea of the neutral zone. So sometimes we think in terms of our emotional state. If there's a negative circumstance, I can get to positive just by snapping my fingers. How many times have we seen coaches that when an athlete, good athlete, it's not a matter of if they'll make a mistake or, a turnover, it's when. And you can just see them beat themselves up, and just going over to them and going, you know what, you just need to snap out of it. That doesn't work. It's really hard to go from negative to positive. So what we tell athletes is we want them to go from negative to neutral. And so it's not so much I'm angry and now I'm happy. I'm angry, but now I'm like, okay, I'm not angry and I'm okay. So the goal is always to get them to go from negative to neutral. So the $1 million question is, how do you get there? So we teach people how to do circle breathing. So the idea is that when you're angry or you're afraid or like you're just sad or whatever it is, like your body's just hijacked right now with emotion. Like, and you don't even realize it. Like we're like a walking chemical dump inside of our bodies because of all the different chemicals and hormones that get released under stress. When we start breathing and we start centering ourselves, we get oxygen back to the brain, we calm the body down, we slow the heart rate down so that my brain can take over and can start thinking logically and get me to a place. So circle breathing, this is the one I like to teach the most. It's just inhaling through our nose for 4 seconds, holding it for 2, and then a long exhale for 6. And the other thing about this is count while you do it, because the counting and the breathing, when they work together well, because my brain can only think about one thing at a time. So if I'm just thinking about, if I'm breathing and I'm really paying attention to the air coming into my nose and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then I count to 6, that's all I can think about. And I'm learning to drown out the mistakes and that emotional state that I'm in. So the breathing and the counting is huge. You also can do what they call a rhythmic breath, which is 4, 4, and 4. Same thing, in through your nose for 4, hold it for 4, out for 4. And then we talk about those thought stop cues. Whatever it is for you, a red dot to recenter. It could be that catchphrase, that trigger word. I think that's next. Yeah. Or any other way that helps you get to neutral. So, putting your eyes on something that helps you recenter, talking to yourself, that trigger word, that I call it a phrase that pays. You got to have a phrase that pays. So that in that moment, it's easy for you to just go to the next play. So perfect example, like I told you at the beginning of today, I was my first client and I am my own ongoing client. And back in October, I competed at United States Powerlifting Association's North American Championships. Big deal. Everybody from North America comes, competes. Actually, our state hosted it at Orange Beach, which was a first time for the state of Alabama. So it was a big deal. It's like putting the Super Bowl of powerlifting in Birmingham or Huntsville, whatever city. So I go down there and I compete, and my squat did not go well. It just didn't. And I came out of squatting. I had to get ready for bench, and I'm like, okay, what would I tell my athletes to do? And it's like, next play, like you got move on. And it was that thought stop cue of move on, Roger. Next play, get ready to bench. And then just working on my breathing. And you learn to pivot. The better you get at it, the pivot happens quicker. So you got to practice it. But squat didn't go. It would have been very easy to check out and just go through the motions or get in a bad emotional state. But it was like, okay, it's over, moving on, and I got to pivot. And boom, you just pivot and you go to the next thing. It takes practice. Here is a great video that I love to show. When LeBron was with the dream team there of Bosch and Wade, this was on the road, semifinal on the road to winning the championship that year. This is like in a game 6, crucial point of this playoff game. They have to win or they go home. And this is what happens.
The first one, this is the last time out. He has played the entire game. He would have played the entire game in game 6 if it wasn't a blowout.
Yeah. So actually that was a game 7. In a tight contest in that game 7, during a timeout, he comes over and just recenters himself. Because, like, here's the thing, DJ. How many times have people looked at you and me and go, breathing doesn't do anything. It doesn't work.
Oh, every time we start it.
Like, if LeBron can do it, so can I, And so when I show that video, they're like, oh, okay, I guess this stuff works. Yeah, I guess it does work. So I always like to show that video. So here's kind of the neutral zone. Neutral's good. Focus on what you want, not what you're trying to avoid. Because a lot of times people play to avoid mistakes, right? And if you say, don't miss the free throw, don't strike out, don't miss the serve, more likely it's going to happen because you're focusing on what you don't want to see happen, right? And so, being very intentional on, focusing on the right thing, because we know what we focus on grows. So you focus on what you want to see happen, and then that gets you to that positive state. Going from negative to positive just doesn't work. You want to get to neutral first. So here's really two good apps that I like. Headspace, obviously. There's a resource online called getlucid.com. That's really more for athletes. So they've got a subscription. There's also another one called trainthemind.com. I don't have them here, but Graham Betchart, who used to work for the Jazz, he created that. And so these are just two good resources for people to tap into.
What was that third one?
It was called Train the Mind. Train the Mind. Trainthemind.com. Actually, Aaron Gordon, who plays for the Nuggets right now, he's an investor and their spokesperson. And so he helped create that app. So this is what I leave with everybody. And this is like advice I have to give to myself every day. When we talk about rising to the occasion, a lot of athletes will say, I'm going to rise to the occasion. I'm going to be ready when I need to be ready. But the dirty secret is, if you haven't prepared, you won't. And so Chris Voss, this is from the business world. He's the former FBI international hostage negotiator. He said this. He said, you don't rise to the occasion. That is a myth. You always rise to your highest level of preparation. And that is so true. Athletes we will know in game situations under pressure if that athlete has prepared. We will know if that business leader has prepared. We will know if that fill in the blank, mom, dad, sister, brother, customer service rep, cashier, when the heat's on and the pressure's there and we have to perform, how we prepared and how we practice will always let us know if we're going to rise to the occasion. So I think that's about it. Here's a little bit about me. Services I provide, the key results I try to go for when I work with any team. And then people can reach out to me by phone. I do most of my social media on Instagram and Facebook, so people can find me there. And then again, as I said earlier, I basically work with teams. I'm a part of their staff. I come in and I work with the coaches and the athletes in order to help them achieve their goals, help them perform under pressure. And I just want them to be mentally and emotionally well so that they can achieve their optimal goals.